I found that if I sit down over three times on a song, then it's done for. It's not getting finished.
That was the voice of Kade Call. He produces under the name Roboclip, and today he will be walking us through his track Roastin. I'm Barrett Dastrup, and this is the Acoustic Purr.
My name is Kade. I like to make music under the name Roboclip. I have a list of acapellas, so I'm always hoarding acapellas, and then I use primarily mixed in key, or sometimes I know just by listening to it, and I organize them by keys. So, and I have a hard drive full of samples, and one of the folders in that sample is acapellas. But if I click on the acapellas organized, it'll bring up all the major keys. So it's in the Camelot format. So 1A, 2A, all the way up to 12, 1B, 2B, all the way up to 12. And I'll know, I don't remember what key this song was in, but whatever key I was in, I'll just open up that folder and see what acapellas I have that are in that key. Drag them into the session, and there's a function in Ableton called slice to MIDI. You just take the audio file. First, you want to warp it and match it to your BPM. And then when you slice it to MIDI, it by default will slice at the beginning of every transient. And it's not the best transient tracking. You can also pick slice as a rhythm, like 8th notes, 16th notes, 32nd notes, triplets, whatever. I always choose slice by the transient, and then it'll take that entire vocal track and it'll slice it into these little pieces. And the beginning and the end will be whatever transients it picks up, and then it'll map it to whatever control surface you have. And it'll create a simpler instrument mapped to a bunch of buttons, and you can start drumming these vocal chops. And then you just start playing around and finding combinations that fit and sound good. And then what I'll usually do is I'll record these ideas, a bunch of different ones, and then once I record them all, I will edit them by hand after to just like tighten them up. So the chords, like the pad aspect of the chords, during this time I was pretty much only using electric piano soft synths that are stock with Ableton. I'm pretty sure it's an MK2, like just preset that comes with Ableton. So just a general electric piano. And then the bass, at the time, all I did for bass was I created 2 tracks. One was a simple square wave for the top end of the bass, and the sub part of the bass was just a sine wave, as simple as it can get. And then I would play that in MIDI on a keyboard. So the bass line starts out as me having the song on loop, having the instrument pulled up, and then having a MIDI keyboard and playing around and coming up with an idea. Once I do that, I double the idea and create my sub bass. I have them grouped together on the same track, and then I start processing it. I'll play as close as what I want, and then I'll create the 2 tracks, throw them on a bus, and the bus will usually have like a compressor for this song, a JJP bass preset, played around with it. I'll usually widen it, play around with the treble and the bass. So I'll throw both the sine wave and the square wave into this bus. Once I get it perfect, I will resample that bus to a single track. So I no longer have MIDI, I just have an audio recording of this bass. Delete the old tracks. That's what I call destructive editing. You make choices that you can't go back on. You force yourself to move forward. Sometimes that sucks. And you wish you still had, had the old MIDI settings and the instruments up, but it is what it is. And then once I have it resampled, I will again throw on some compression, some effects, usually saturation and distortion. I'll play around with bit crushers, saturator knobs. There's a knob by one knob. It's a set of knobs that are just like one setting. And I think it's called driver. I'll use that one a lot, and it'll just get it to that crunchiness where it's hot and crunchy, but not at the level I want it to be when it mixes in. So you're hearing the bass resonate with the pad, so that the top end of the bass has all this crunchy distortion on it. Some mix of bit crushing and driver, I don't remember. There's one part that I've only done in one song, and it's this song. It's a technique where there's, in the chorus, we'll cue it up in post, there's some like really choppy, weird sound effects. Like weird stuff. There's no way to do that. It's a horrible approximation. I made that by taking in that same slice to MIDI function where I would chop up acapellas. You can also do a similar function where you grab a bunch of one shots. You grab a bunch of weird random files and you can select them all in your file browser and drag them onto a sampler in Ableton, and it'll map them all as separate samples. So what I did is I had a big folder of a bunch of random video game sound effects, stuff from like Mega Man, Mario, Street Fighter, whatever. And I just would grab random ones, throw them into this sampler, and then start hitting pads and playing around and trying to make beats or make patterns based on the way that I chopped it up. So then I would create a couple ideas, and then once those ideas were done, I would resample them and record them, and then I would throw on Ableton's beat repeat, which just like randomly jacks with stuff's rhythm. And 80% of the time it sucks. It doesn't sound cool. It's like it's offbeat, and I couldn't get it to consistently produce a good result. But every once in a while it would have like a 4-bar section that was money. And I was like, I can't, and I couldn't figure out a way to just have it set up perfect to do that consistently. So every time I render the track, it would be completely different. So what I did is I let it run for like 15 minutes, recording itself, and resampled that all into an audio track. And then every time it hit one of those 4 or 6 bar phrases, I would cut out the junk and keep that little slice of the track. And then over the course of letting it run 15 minutes, I got 45 seconds worth of really cool choppy stuff that fit to the beat. And then I could just piece that together. A lot of times I'll refer to this process as manufacturing creativity, or I've used the term only copy the best of beats while producing. And it just, for me, it means accepting that I'm not the best. And I don't need to have this, a lot of people when they begin have this ego thing where they want to start originally from scratch. They're against sampling, or they're against sort of shortcutting. Well, in their mind, they would consider it a shortcut anyway, in any way, shape, or form. But if you take that train of thought to the extreme, no matter what, you're going to be shortcutting. I've made a couple posts and I've seen similar ideas be thrown around on social media with the same humor, is that if you're not creating your own computer from scratch or creating your own program, coding it yourself, and you're not creating that computer out of the raw minerals you mined out of the earth itself with tools that you created yourself and designed, and have your own blacksmith, and you're also a coder coding in a language that you invented for an OS that you invented, and you get the idea. It gets pretty ridiculous. So at some point you're going to have to build upon the creativity of someone who came before you. And I guess what you have to decide is how much are you going to build upon. I like to build a scaffolding based on a song that I like. It doesn't necessarily have to be a song that's performed well critically or commercially. It just has to be something that gives me the itch to make music.
You can find Kade on SoundCloud and Bandcamp, again under the name Roboclip. In a future episode, Kade will be telling us about his remix for the Polish ambassador, Sonido del Sol, so you can take a listen to that. Here is Roastin' by Roboclip.